WWE SummerSlam 2024 is right around the corner. Now, this is a big year for me because this is going to be my 10th year as a WWE fan. I became a wrestling fan through watching The Shield in early 2014 following WrestleMania 30, and I was hooked ever since. And so now, over the last few years, I've built a little bit of a name for myself, being a bit of a armchair booker, fantasy booker, if you will, with everything I've done over at LS11 Universe. Welcome to WrestleLuigi. My name is Zander. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and connect with me down in the comments down below. This is a new thing I'm trying. I'm really excited to let you learn a little bit more about me as a wrestling fan. So, today's video, we are talking about the main event of SummerSlam every year for the last 10 years, and how I would book it differently, or if I would book it differently. So, first up on the block, we have 2014. Now, this show was main evented by John Cena defending the WWE World Heavyweight Championship against Brock Lesnar. This is the first of many times you're going to hear the name Brock Lesnar on this list, starting with what the real main event was, and I promise you, it will not be the last. Oddly enough, with this one, I wouldn't change a thing about what the main event of SummerSlam 2014 was. Now, do I think Brock should have ended his streak? No, but that's a topic for a different day and a different video. But going with the circumstances we have, I'm essentially coming to each of these shows that the build is the same, and the only things I could change are the maybe 2 months leading into the show. So, with this, the only thing I would really change about Cena and Lesnar is I would maybe make it a few minutes shorter and a little less competitive. Cena has kind of rewritten history just a little bit with this match, claiming that the match was very one-sided throughout the whole thing. But just going off of Wikipedia, the match was 16 minutes and 5 seconds. I would have had Brock win in just under 10. Now, I'm definitely not the biggest Brock Lesnar fan, especially following the controversies in 2024 surrounding him. But looking at this through the glasses of 2014 being a different time, well, I think it's important to look at this and think, this matchup is very important to the change of John Cena over the last 10 years leading to this final run he's going into. I wouldn't change this at all. I would keep Lesnar beating Cena, and I would keep him squashing Cena. 2015 is a very different story, though. 2015 SummerSlam was main evented by the rematch from WrestleMania 30 between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. Now, I said a minute ago that I wouldn't have had Brock break the streak at all at WrestleMania 30, but again, that's a topic for a different video. If I was completely rebooking that, this matchup wouldn't be happening at all. Now, looking at the card as it is, this matchup is the one that makes the most sense to main event, but assuming that we're in a situation where I'm not having to say that Brock broke the streak in 2014, earlier in the card, you had a winner-take-all match for both the WWE and United States Championship between Seth Rollins as the WWE World Heavyweight Champion and John Cena, who was in the middle of a killer United States Championship run. Honestly, I would have had this main event, and the only thing I would change there is I would have Seth Rollins cheat to win with maybe a sledgehammer shot, a low blow, something like that, rather than, Jon Stewart getting involved. I think Jon Stewart's just as funny as the next Daily Show host, but getting involved in a World Championship match at SummerSlam, that just doesn't sit right with me. 2016. The first show following the 2016 brand split with Raw and SmackDown, where the new rosters were officially in place. Remember, Battleground was an interpromotional show, you still had some interpromotional matches, the brand split went into effect the following day on Raw, which was also my birthday, by the way. SummerSlam 2016 was main evented by Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton, in a match that had no titles, no stipulations, and had a very strange finish where Brock just won by referee stoppage when he beat Randy Orton up too much. I've never really understood the point of this matchup other than Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton for the first time ever. Well, the first time ever after they both became solidified main eventers. I think they had a random match on an episode of SmackDown in 2003. Maybe 2002. It doesn't really matter, does it? But looking at this card, I would have much preferred to have Seth Rollins and Finn Balor to crown the inaugural Universal Champion be the main event of the show. You're crowning a new world champion with a new championship that became the focal point of the company for the following 5 years. Actually, the following almost 10 years. Because from the time the Universal title was introduced until Roman Reigns lost it a few months ago at WrestleMania 40. That was the world title, and the championship named after the company was the second most important title in the company. That's bothered me for years, and that's a topic for a different day as well. But yes, in this case, I would once again remove Brock from the main event of SummerSlam, and I would have Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. That matchup was an incredible matchup, despite the fact that Finn Balor got injured and forced to vacate the title the next night because of it. But this matchup was incredible, and it was the crowning of a new world champion. And what better way to solidify Finn Balor as the guy in WWE that they were trying to make him into with this championship win than to have him win in the main event of SummerSlam instead of being a sideshow attraction for Brock Lesnar getting another dominant win we all knew he was going to get anyway. 2017, and oh, look who's back again. We're still not done with him. This show was actually main evented by the Universal Championship, where Brock Lesnar defended the championship against Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and Braun Strowman. The stipulation in this matchup was that if Brock Lesnar lost, he and Paul Heyman were going to leave WWE. And with Brock's contract up in the air, which it was many times along the way in these years, it was actually seemingly possible that Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman, or even Roman Reigns could walk out of SummerSlam as the Universal Champion. I really like this matchup. We all know I'm a fan of super heavyweights colliding, especially the more the merrier. I love the kind of big, meaty men bumping meat, as Big E would put it, type of matches. And this matchup checks every box in that category for me. Again, I have to put my feelings to Brock Lesnar following the 2024 controversies to the side for this one. This matchup is incredible and most certainly deserved the main event, especially when the other option would have been Jinder Mahal versus Shinsuke Nakamura. 2018, I have feelings about this one. This will probably be the most controversial one on this list, and possibly the one you see me get the most upset about and talking about. Going into this show, Roman Reigns had won the Elimination Chamber earlier in the year to challenge Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania in the main event for the second time ever. It was arguably one of the worst WrestleMania main events of all time, and quite honestly, out of the 10 years I've been watching, it's my least favorite WrestleMania main event I've ever had to watch. And that includes Roman Reigns versus Triple H at WrestleMania 32, Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33, and many others along the way. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 34 was such a terrible match. Brock was just spamming the F5 the whole time, and the match was essentially F5 until he doesn't kick out anymore. And all it did was make people resent the match more and more. If I remember correctly, people were actually walking out during this matchup at the arena. Which of course naturally means that just 5 months later at SummerSlam, when Raw had more hot acts than ever, with Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, and even the returning Bobby Lashley all on the show, they went right back to Roman and Brock once again. And Roman Reigns finally got the win here in arguably one of the dumbest finishes in SummerSlam history. Braun Strowman came down with his Money in the Bank briefcase, apparently forgetting how the rules of Money in the Bank worked and forgetting the gimmick of Money in the Bank is to surprise the champion with an attack and then win. He came down before the match would even begin, announced he would be cashing in after the match. Braun Strowman would get beat up by Brock Lesnar, leading to Roman spearing a chair out of Brock's hands and finally beating him. Of course, Roman would be forced to vacate the championship due to his returning leukemia a few weeks later. I'm not going to rebook anything involving that for obvious reasons, although I did do that once in a How Zander Would Book video on LS11 Universe. Anyways, the only thing I would change with SummerSlam is that it seemed they were building with Bobby Lashley beating Roman Reigns clean at Extreme Rules to a Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar dream match in the main event of SummerSlam. And that's what I would change this to. Have Bobby and Brock go at it, just clobbering one another in an MMA-style fight in the middle of the ring at SummerSlam, and have Bobby Lashley be the one to beat Brock Lesnar, win the Universal Championship while he's still hot from his return, and, hot take, have him use a spear as a finisher instead of a, delayed vertical suplex. Let's just move on to 2019. 2019, and would you look at that, Brock Lesnar is walking in as a champion once again in the main event. I told you to get used to his name on these lists by now. This matchup happened after Brock won Money in the Bank without even being in the match and cashed in on Seth Rollins about 8 weeks later in the main event of Extreme Rules. That's not what we're talking about right now. This was Seth's rematch for the title, and he just won it back within a few minutes of just, countering moves. I'll be honest, the Seth Rollins-Brock Lesnar 2019 main event at SummerSlam, one of my favorite Brock matches that he had in the time that he was back while I was watching. But that being said, do I think that should have main evented the show? It's really arguable on this one for me. Because on one hand, I do think it was good to just finally see that story come to an end and see Seth be the person to beat Brock Lesnar clean that wasn't Goldberg. But on the other hand, I also feel like as if Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton hadn't had a weird disqualification finish, that would have made more sense to be the main event of SummerSlam. Especially seeing as Kofi Kingston never main evented a pay-per-view in his time as the WWE Champion, and this felt like the perfect place to do it. I would have just had Seth and Brock open the show like they did at WrestleMania, had it be a much more competitive match without any low blows involved, done the exact same match they did in the main event at SummerSlam 2019, and just slotted the match that Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston had at Night of Champions a few weeks later into the main event of SummerSlam. It was Clash of Champions, not Night of Champions. Delete your comments now. Also, Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton ended in a double countout, not disqualification. Delete the comments now. 2020, and this is the first time in this entire list that Brock Lesnar's name has not appeared. It's very nice to take a breather from him, isn't it? This show was main evented by The Fiend Bray Wyatt winning the Universal Championship from Braun Strowman, and the show ended with the return of Roman Reigns, who officially debuted his Tribal Chief character in the main event of the show, winning the championship from The Fiend just 7 days later. This is a very interesting one to think about, because SummerSlam 2020 is just such a show that I want to forget about, and I think many of you do as well, seeing as it was in the middle of the pandemic, when the pandemic was probably at its worst, and it was the first premium live event to take place in the Thunderdome. All of that being said, I probably just want to say the less about this one is the better, and just say that we keep this one the same and move on. Roman Reigns' return set up his generational run, which, again, I have feelings about, but that's not what the purpose of this video is. And I would just say that it led to the Tribal Chief run that we got, and I think it's important to keep that intact. And also, the other match was Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, who we would see fight on 3 separate premium live events for the WWE Championship following this show. And, well, I was very tired of that by this time as well. 2021 was the first SummerSlam where Roman Reigns was champion as the Tribal Chief, defending the title against John Cena in the main event of the show. I really like the idea of this match, but the execution was not great. They randomly added the stipulation that if Roman lost, he was going to leave WWE to the match, making the result even more obvious than it already was going to be. The whole story of the match was that John Cena just needed 1, 2, 3, and he was continuously trying to roll up Roman Reigns. And of course, the match played out the same as many other Roman Reigns matches along the way, where he would just kick out a finisher after finisher before hitting 1 or 2 spears and getting the win. Fortunately, as far as I remember, this matchup didn't really have much bloodline interference. This was before all of his title matches were super oversaturated with interference from Jimmy and Jay, and of course Solo, who would arrive just a year later. I think Cena and Roman main eventing the show is the right choice here, but I would have had it be a much more competitive match, similar to the one they had a few years back in 2017. And nothing else happened after this matchup, right? No one else showed up after the main event. Oh, son of a bitch! And wouldn't you know it, that takes us right into 2022, where SummerSlam 2022 in Nashville was main evented with the last man standing match between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. I actually wouldn't change a thing about this. The tractor was amazing, Brock leaping off the tractor, Roman catching the mic and winking. It was beautiful carnage, and it was the final battle between Roman and Brock. We were all sick of it by this time, but it was arguably, actually, not even arguably, it was factually their best encounter that they ever had. And if it's the final one, it was a great way to end the rivalry. I don't have much more to say on Roman and Brock, especially because I don't want to talk about Brock any more than I have to. It's one of the few times you're going to hear me say that he should have stayed in the main event of SummerSlam. What's this bringing up to now? 3 that I've said he should have stayed in the main event of out of 7? Alright. Finally on our list, SummerSlam 2023. The Tribal Combat match between Roman Reigns and main event Jey Uso for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. I love the concept of this match. I love that Jey pinned Roman a few weeks prior at Money in the Bank. It really felt like the first real dent in the armor of the Tribal Chief character when Roman realized he could in fact be pinned. And I think that everything leading into this matchup was incredible, with the Usos splitting from the Bloodline. I remember the segment where Jey says, "If you're out, I'm out too," and leaves the Bloodline. I was on vacation when this happened, and it was must-watch TV to the point where I stayed tuned in my hotel room to see it, because I knew the Usos would be leaving the Bloodline that night, and I didn't want to miss it. Roman and Jey had a great build as well, with the whole stipulation of the real, just the Ula Fala being on the line and the right to being the Tribal Chief and the head of the table being on the line. We all went in knowing that Jey probably wasn't going to win because it didn't seem like the right time to do it. But the only issue I had with this matchup was the finish again. Jimmy's turn still doesn't make sense to me. I've had plenty of people try to explain this to me in the LS11 Universe Discord server, which you can join in the link down below, that it was Jimmy trying to prevent Jey from becoming like Roman because he believed that the championship would corrupt him. But again, this doesn't feel like the right storyline, seeing as Jimmy was the one to leave the Bloodline and take Jey out with him. And then it, of course, led to the Uso versus Uso match at WrestleMania 40, which, again, the less said about that one, the better. So ultimately, I would keep this one the same, but I would just have Roman win it clean. They also built up in the story that the Elders would not want any interference in this matchup, but wouldn't you know it, this matchup was riddled with interference, from Solo to Jimmy to even Paul Heyman being out there at ringside the entire time. Ultimately, Roman winning was the right choice. I just don't agree with how they decided to book the finish. And that brings us to this year, 2024, where SummerSlam is likely going to be main evented by Cody Rhodes defending the Universal Championship against the new Tribal Chief, Solo Sikoa. I'm not going to be rebooking this because, well, it hasn't happened yet, but you can come do a live watch along with all of us, where myself and my best friend Ray will be live reacting over our other channel, LS11 Universe. But tell me below, what SummerSlam main events would you have changed? Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment down below to tell me what you think. I'm very excited to start this new journey here on WrestleLuigi. I've been Xander, and I'll see you all tomorrow.